You gotta love the octopus tripod. This is on a flat screen right now. Oh, that's so funny. I wonder if that'll stay there. Hey, anyway, ni hao. Stephanie. I just came from the gym and I'm really, okay, that's just awful lighting. I'm gonna have to move. Okay, so I'm just gonna sit here. Okay, but I had this thought and I vlog to think, so I needed to vlog this idea. I had a really good interview today for the Changing Scripts. Wow, I am so gross. I swear my gym doesn't really have AC. They just have those little things coming out of the AC that move, that make it look like the AC is on, which is a really good trick, but I'm not falling for it because I literally could just stand there and I'd still be sweating, so I can't really gauge if I'm like working my heart rate up enough or if it's just a room in August. Anyway, so disclaimer over. That's why I look all sweaty. Point being, I had this really good discussion today with Matthew Boyle of Language Card Games. I have done some videos on his card games before, so feel free to dig into the videos to check those out. I got him on the podcast, the Changing Scripts sister project, the podcast. It's not going to be out for like a month or so until the next season starts, but we did record it today, and it was a really good conversation. And I've been thinking all day about my Chinese language life, which doesn't really exist yet. I know I'm actually really, okay, here's a full sentence. I realized when I was studying tonight, when I get into the groove of studying, I really like studying Chinese. I really like the look of the characters, especially new ones. The first time I meet a new word, and I allow myself to stare at it long enough to see the visualizations that I see, I think that's really fun. When I do it too fast, it becomes annoying because then I recognize it without remembering it, and that becomes frustrating. And then there's all this like language guilt that starts, and it's just ridiculous. But that first time I meet those words and those characters in that combination, I really, really like that. I like the listening because now I've turned it into a reading activity that has listening feedback to check on it. So I'm literally reading every day now. Yes, it's super boring conversations from the HSK 3 materials, 2 and 3 materials, but I'm reading, and out of most of the sentences, there's maybe 1 or 2 words that I don't know. And yeah, the sentences aren't super long yet, but I still feel like that is amazing. I feel really happy about that. And as I was studying tonight, I had my sparkling Perrier on the table because you have to buy something, and I wasn't going to buy coffee at 5 p.m. at night at this cafe. So I had my sparkling water, and I had my flashcards, and I had my Pleco, which is the Chinese dictionary that I use, and I had my listening materials, which is the transcript, and the audio in my headphones, and I was just like, and my pencil with the eraser, because the eraser is really important, and I was happy. When I'm doing that, I'm happy. That is the part of my Chinese language life that I really like. And that is the part that I liked talking to with Matthew and with the other people that I'm interviewing on the podcast, and the people I'm talking to about learning language off the podcast as well, and with you guys on this channel. But you know what's coming is there's more. There's more to that Chinese language life that isn't as pleasant. And I'm actually sitting on my ankles and this hurts like hell, so I'm going to pause and move for a second. I got properly lazy. All right, and what are those areas that I don't like? Okay, so the areas that the Chinese language world that I don't like, and if for those of you that are new, I live in Shanghai, China. I've lived here for 1.5 years this time. I lived in Taiwan in 2003 and 2004 for almost a year, and I lived in Nanjing, China, and then Shanghai, China for about 1.5 years, 7 years ago. So this is not my first rodeo being surrounded by Mandarin Chinese. However, it's the first time that I've studied this long, and it's the first time I feel like I've been making progress. So these all sound like positive things, right? But there are negative things. Let's see if I can quantify these. One is the pressure on myself. The beauty and the beast of this YouTube channel, and I think I've mentioned this before, and I've heard it from other language bloggers, is that doing this and documenting this for my own purposes, but also to connect with others who are also learning language, is really motivating. I don't think I would have lasted this long since April of last year. I don't think I would have vlogged this long. I don't think I would have studied this hard. The pressure's on because I'm basically testing out my language teaching abilities on myself in front of you. So the pressure's on. In a lot of ways, that's been good because it's pushed me to keep going in moments that I'm like, I don't know if I want to, I don't know if I want to. Too many people know I'm doing this on and offline. So in those moments that I'm wavering, I go with just keep going. It's got to get better. Repetition, learning's repetition. It's got to get better. Whatever's hard right now has got to get better. And if I stop, I'll have to start again next time I try. Bleh. Been doing that. That doesn't work very well. The other pressure is, and I know people are really well-meaning, but other language learners, the best analogy, and I think I said this before, is when you're traveling, especially when you're backpacking, dear Europeans, not making fun of Europeans, it's just something, backpacking as a like gap year or early 20s activity is super common in Europe, right? And there are some people who do it really well and they're very open-minded and they go to all these places and they do these really, really interesting things and they're very open to meeting other people. And then you have the competitive backpacker. And the competitive backpacker basically wants you to list off all the countries you've ever been to, and if they're more than theirs, they want you to list off the ones you've been to recently, because if they're too long ago, they don't count. They don't count. That doesn't count. Those are things that competitive backpackers like to do. I didn't really hang out with those folks, because I was into just having fun, meeting people that had like interests, and meeting people who wanted to go do really interesting things, not just check off the things you're supposed to do. In the same way, I don't really want to do the things you're supposed to do in Chinese. I want to do the things I want to do, which is, if I can say it again, I want to read. So every time I get judged in person or online for my speaking ability, and I understand on this channel why that happens, because I have to say things while I'm showing you them because different characters can be different sounds and it's all very confusing. So I get it online. But when I'm just talking about the language with people and they're not actually hearing my language abilities and I say things like, I really want to read, I don't really learn to speak with people at the early ages or early stages of a language. It doesn't help me. Or, yeah, I don't really find it fun to ask people the questions to my workbook. I don't find that an interesting conversation. I don't like bugging people about stuff like that. I'd rather just go find the answers and talk to people later on when I have more interesting vocabulary to have real conversations. When I say these things, I feel like the competitive language learner jumps out of these people and just slaps me around the face. And I just want to walk away, because then the conversation just ceases to be fun. And it's not about the enjoyment of the language anymore. It's not that happy spot that I'm at when I'm studying. It's this weird competitive, why aren't you doing it like me? Why aren't you learning it as fast like me? I can't comprehend that anybody else would do anything differently. My way is the only way. Those kinds of things. And it's not everybody. Oh, nothing is ever anybody. But it's often enough that it wears me down. And it wears me down because I'm so vocal about what I'm doing. And so I put myself out there for folks to say, you're doing it wrong, because you're not doing it my way. And I don't know. It just wears me down. So there's the happy time when I'm studying and when I'm reading especially, and when I can read a full sentence with knowing every word and knowing the meaning of the sentence, which can be different things. That's a happy moment. When I hear a word here and there around me, those are also happy moments too, but they're not as happy and they're not as understandable in longer stretches as reading is. Those are happy moments. But when people start to judge me on how I'm studying, what I'm studying, how fast I'm learning, and the methods that I'm using, I think I said that already. These are things I hate. These are conversations I don't want to have. These are conversations that make me feel ashamed, that make me feel embarrassed. And I'm sure there's a difference between those two, so I'll just say both of them. They make me feel angry that I feel these things because this is my process and I don't need to take on these emotions, but they hit. They hit and they go away sooner, but they still hit because they're there. And they're very easy to come out of me for reasons that I've over talked about before. So there's the happy Chinese language learning world that I'm in when I'm studying solo. And when I have those good conversations with people about the language, which happens often on the podcast, often on this channel, and sometimes in real life. But then there's those moments where I have those awful conversations where people just don't understand differences in language learning, where I try to change the subject so I can talk to them about something else. Because it doesn't mean they're a bad person, it just means we can't have that conversation in any way, shape, or form because it's just too detrimental to my emotional state. So I'm trying to I don't know why, but for some reason tonight when I was working out, I started to think of these different Chinese language worlds that I live in. There's also the Chinese language world where I'm not having positive or negative reaction to anything that's going on, and I'm just surrounded by the language. No, let me rephrase that. Where I'm surrounded by both Pudonghua, which is standard Mandarin Chinese, and I'm surrounded by Shanghaiese, and I cannot tell the difference yet. And that is definitely a third existence that I have, where I'm just out and about in Shanghai or anywhere in China, and I have the language around me. And that's not really comprehensible yet. I'll hear a word here and there, but it's not really comprehensible yet. So that one it coexist. I feel like I coexist with the language there, but I'm not really struggling with it, and I'm not really striving with it. I'm just kind of in the same space. So that's a neutral space. So I've got the happy space, the negative space, and the neutral space. And I ping pong between all three of these on a daily basis. And I do not know for the life of me why this came out tonight when I was working out, but it did. And I don't know if I've ever thought of it that clearly before, because I know a lot of folks think that immersion works for everybody. It doesn't. And I'm one of those people. I really, really need to go slow. I need to have tons of repetition, and I need to have tons of time. And I can't be the only one out there, right? There must be other people who aren't and I do believe some people, just like some people are more genetically gifted to do singing, more genetically gifted to do weightlifting, more genetically gifted to do X, Y, and Z. I do believe, and this is very unpopular in the polyglot community right now, but I do believe that some people pick up languages quicker and more easily. And I am not one of those people. And it's not an excuse. I think it's a fact. We do have genetic predispositions. Damn it, I almost got that out. We do have genetic predispositions for nearly everything, so why wouldn't it make sense that we have it for language learning, for that kind of cognitive process? Doesn't mean you can't learn a language, just some people learn them quicker and easier than others. Not saying people don't put work into it, so I'm not dissing the polyglots and saying they just open a book and it flies into their head. That's a ridiculous simplification. But I am saying for some people it takes longer and with more effort and more time than others. And the one thing I keep coming back to again and again and again is to respect each other's process. That's the only thing I can think of. No matter how many methods I show you that I'm trying out this week and next week and the week after. And for this week, it was one of the first times that I really gave advice on a path to take for one of my viewers that asked me, I want to start learning, what do I do? And I was like, I think this is a good path. Is it the only path? Hell no. So keep track of how you're doing and make adjustments as you need to, because everybody's path is different. And we need to just respect each other's path. Seriously. But those three spaces became very, very clear to me tonight. The happy space, the neutral space, where the language is there but I'm not really doing anything with it yet, and the negative space where I feel like there's a lot of language judgment and competition and yuck. just yuck. If I can be 5-year-old about this, I just want to go yucky, yucky, yucky. That space, oh, here's the analogy to end the video. Here we go. Remember that first day of kindergarten when you're going up the ladder to the slide and you're stuck behind the one kid that seems to not understand they have to wipe? That stench hits you and you're like, I've never smelled that before. What is that smell? And you look up and you realize it's the human being in front of you going up the slide. But you really want to go up the slide, so you just go climb it slower so you're not right behind them and you don't partake in the smell as much as possible, but the kids behind you are pushing and you're trying to hold your ground. That's the ickiness of that third space, of the judgy language competitive space. I'm leaving the analogy there, folks, because I don't edit for a reason. And yes, that was a true story. That happened to me in kindergarten, and I will never, ever forget it. It was disgusting. But it gave me the ability to over-describe this icky space that I don't want to happen in my life, but that inevitably shares a space with the happy space and the neutral space. I don't know. If you're learning Chinese or any other language, do you feel like there are different versions of your life that deal with the language, that where you encompass the language in different ways? I don't know. I feel like some people think you go to the country where you're learning the language and poof, things just happen. And it's not that direct of a transition. There's life. There's a whole lot of life that happens while you're learning the language. And so there's different stages of how much you can use the language while you're learning the language. So there you go. I have no idea why this came out tonight, but there you go. All right, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts if you have any on this. You can skip the whole child slide thing. You don't need to comment on that unless you have a like story, but I'm not sure we should really go down that road. I don't know. I'm not going to censor you. Do what you're going to do. Except for if you're going to language judge, just go over there. Oh, sorry, over there. Go over there. Go with the stinky butt, kids. Yeah. Oh, there's my feet. All right, I'm going to go shower now because I'm freaking disgusting. 再见.